Welcome back to another episode of The Road Chose Me. My name's Dan Grech, and on today's episode, it's time to start wiring up electrical outlets. So I have my dual isolated batteries now, I've got tons of capacity, a really great charge controller, but how am I actually going to use that power to charge my equipment, to run a fridge, to run a water pump, all of those kinds of things. So if you're interested in how you actually use that 12 volt power out of that battery, stick around, I'll get into all the details right now. So in its simplest sense, all I need to do is connect a positive wire to the positive of my house battery and a negative wire on the other terminal, and that's it, I have 12 volts. If I wanted to, I could plug that into my fridge, and that's all I need to do to wire up the fridge. Or if I wanted, I can connect a USB outlet. So what I got is a whole bunch of dual USB outlets from Lightforce, the same company that made my driving spotlights. And so these things are really great. They're just a small little block that have dual USB outlets. One is 3 amps, one is 2.4 amps. And then on the back, we just get a pigtail, basically 12 volt positive, 12 volt negative. And these actually even include a little wire that you could wire up to your lighting circuit so that these will illuminate in the dark when you actually have your headlights on. And so little lights come on and then you can see the outlets. So if you put these on the dashboard or something, really handy way to have 12 volts. And so what I'm thinking about doing is, because my cabinet is going to be charger central, I have to charge my big camera, which I'm talking to right now. I have to charge my microphones. I have to charge my GoPro, my laptop, my drone, and I'm sure I'm forgetting other things too, but I'm gonna need a whole bunch of charging outlets. So what I'm going to do is actually install 3, maybe even 4 of these, I haven't decided yet, inside the cabinet that I built. And I want to keep them all contained and kind of all together. So what I just did, I went down to the local electrical supply store and I bought just a generic electrical junction box. This was about $12. And so this is just a plastic box. It does have a nice rubber seal on the door. So technically this thing is considered weatherproof, which is really nice. And the basic idea is I'm going to cut holes in the front of the junction box here and mount all of my USBs. So they'll basically just sit like that, and I'll see how many I can fit in, maybe 3 in a row, which gives me 6 USB outlets. As well as that, I've got a connector to charge my laptop. So the charger that I have here, this is actually just a DC step-up converter. Like I said, I don't run an inverter, so I'm not using the charging brick. I don't have to convert the 12 volts DC back into AC power, then plug in my laptop charging brick, which just converts it back to DC anyway, and then charge the laptop off that. That's way too much complication and extra stuff for me. So instead, this little guy, it just takes 12 volts from the auxiliary house battery, steps it up to about 19 volts, which is what my Mac laptop needs. And right on the end here, I've got a MagSafe connector. This is Apple's laptop charger connector. And you can see how dirty and beat up this thing is. I used it for all 3 years around Africa. It's been fantastic, and I'm gonna keep using it. What I've decided to do though is uprate the plug a little bit. So I bought a couple of these guys, which are commonly used to plug in solar panels. So I've got a panel mount female here of a dual, it's a positive and a negative wire that's quite heavy duty and will carry a lot of current. So what I'm planning on doing is I'll mount this female again on my electrical junction box, and then the male end here, I'll just wire into my laptop charger. So that gives me a laptop outlet as well on my junction box. I actually have a couple of other things left over from the Africa trip that charge using kind of old barrel connectors. So I'll put a female barrel connector or 2 on this junction box. And I'm just thinking too, inside my cabinet, I would like to have a light of some sort. And so I'll probably put a switch as well, just so I can turn a light on and off that's inside. And I've thought a bit about it. Do I want a master switch to be able to turn this junction box off so that all the chargers turn off? And I don't think I do. This is going to be inside the storage cabinet, inside the Jeep. So it's very weatherproof. I don't need to worry about it getting wet or anything like that. And I want to be able to charge things 24/7, even overnight. And these little USB guys, they do have a tiny little bit of parasitic power draw. So even when you're not using them, they are using up the tiniest little bit of power. But I think given that I've got a 100-watt solar panel, given how efficient my charge controller is, I think it's so insignificant that I'm just not going to worry about it. And further to that too, this whole junction box is going to be wired through my fuse block. And so that means this will all be on its own 15 amp fused circuit. So even if something did go wrong, that fuse is just going to blow and then I can replace the fuse and be fine. So I think I'm not going to have a master switch to turn this one off. And basically it's just a bunch of power outlets. But the reason I mention that is because I actually bought a second one and I was very careful on the width that I bought. This is 95 millimeters wide, and this is going to go in the bed of the Gladiator, right at the back where I've got the wires coming out. And my plan for this one is I'll mount a really big heavy duty switch on it. This will turn on and off the water pump that I'm going to have in the back. I'll probably have another switch on this thing that'll run a light that I'm going to have in the interior canopy. That'll be over the bed of the Gladiator. And I'll probably have a USB outlet or two on this thing. I'll probably have an outlet for my laptop again. I'm not even sure yet exactly what will be on it. But again, this is waterproof. It has the rubber seal on the door, and being down low on the side of the bed in the Gladiator, I think it'll be great to have like a little electronics charging station, as well as lights, as well as the water pump master switch. So that's how I'm going to use power. What I really need to do now is think about where do I want them all, how am I going to fit them all in, and make sure that on the back end everything fits. But essentially it's pretty straightforward. Drill holes, mount them in, get them nice and flush and smooth, and then on the back side, basically all the red wires just connect together, which is 12 volt, all the black wires connect together, which is the negative, and I just have to run a wire over to my fuse block by the battery, and then that's it, I'll be finished. So it isn't rocket science, but it's just a matter of spending the time to get these in the right places and then getting it done. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So there you can see I've got the first USB charging block installed, and I'll just double check here for fitment. Pretty sure these little clips go in, there it is. And so that's how they're gonna go, clipped in. I'll probably do 2 more here and here, and that'll leave me enough space for my laptop charger here, and then a couple of other things down here, whether they're those barrel outlets or a switch for some lights. I'll figure that in a minute. But for now, I just need to do 2 more of those so that I actually have 4 charging blocks or 8 USB outlets right in my cabinet. So there we have it. I've mounted the 4 USB outlets, and I also mounted the outlet that I'll use to charge my laptop. So this is what the charging brick is going to look like inside the cabinet. And I also have a couple more surface mount plugs that I want to mount. The little round ones that you use like to charge normally a laptop or something. I have that as the charger for a AA battery charger. I use it on my soldering iron, kind of anything else that's 12 volt, but that doesn't use USB. And the reason I use those is because I find the cigarette lighter plugs, they're just so big and bulky. They're this deep, they're fatter than my thumb. And so I don't want to use that if I can help it, because it takes up too much space. So instead, I'd rather use, this is the male version of the connector. This is the barrel plug that I'm talking about. And having that for 12 volts, so much smaller, so much lighter, and it doesn't break either. This one has been on there for all of Africa and ever since, and I've used it a lot and it's never broken. I find cigarette lighter plugs, the more you plug them in and out, they eventually break apart, that little fuse holder crumbles. So I don't want to deal with any of that. So instead I'll mount a couple of little surface mount guys here. I'm just waiting for those to arrive before I can do it. And so a couple of other projects Dad and I decided to tackle. Inside the cabinet, I'd really like to have a light, just so that I can see what I'm doing with all these chargers and things when it's dark outside. And so I got from Lightforce a couple of what they call their Rock 9 utility lights. So these are just little LED lights, simple little things, and on the end you just get a pigtail, so you get positive and negative, and obviously wire it in however you want, mount it anywhere you want. And it comes with this little rubber backing, so you can choose to use that, and obviously we could cut it and shape it to what we want, or you can just screw it to wherever you want. A million different ways to go about mounting this thing. But what we've decided to do, we're going to bend up a little aluminium bracket, bend this on an angle, and put it just inside the lip behind the door of the cabinet. And I'll also mount a switch. I've got a few left over actually from when I built my Africa Jeep. Yeah, I've had these since 2015. And so I'll just mount a little switch right next to the light, and super simple wiring. You just run the negative straight to the light, and then the positive just comes through the switch. So the switch basically just breaks the circuit, whether it flows through the 12 volt positive or whether it doesn't. That's going to turn the light on and off. So that's our next little task, and I'm just going to keep chipping away at little things that I can do while I have the parts here, and obviously I'm waiting for some other things to still arrive. So I finished making that bracket, and I put a switch in, and I've even pop riveted it here to the aluminium framework. Another really great thing about this aluminium framework, it makes mounting stuff so easy. You can just screw to it or pop rivet to it or whatever you want. And for now, I've just got the wires in this tubing running out. They're actually on the battery terminals of the Jeep right now with clothes pegs. Probably not recommended, but you know, just for testing purposes. This is how the cabinet will sit in the Jeep. Obviously it'll be a bit higher off the ground, but just to give you an idea, all you have to do is reach in and there's a switch, and that's it. The little work light turns on and obviously now lights up the inside. When it's dark out, I think this is going to be incredible just to be able to see in my cabinet. And so what I'll do is I'll run these wires along the inside down to the back corner where I'm going to have that big charging block with all the USBs and the laptop charger and all of that. And then in that far back corner, I'll punch a hole out of the cabinet, and that's right by where my auxiliary battery and fuse block is. So I'll be able to wire all of this into that stuff. So yeah, little Light Force Rock 9. They call it a compact utility light. So it's just a small LED, but really well made, obviously waterproof, which is fantastic. I will be mounting one of these inside my rear canopy. I might put one inside the Jeep somewhere. I may even put a couple on the outside of the Jeep in strategic places so they work really well under my awning. Really happy with how it's turned out. I really like the light. I haven't actually read the specs, but I'm sure it says 9 watts. So really tiny amount of power to be drawing. And to have a little switch here inside my cabinet and the light, I think that's fantastic. So another project ticked off. Let's get to whatever's next on this wiring extravaganza. Okay, so quite a bit of time has gone by since I filmed the first part of this video. This job actually got put on the back burner while I was working on so many other things. And you can see now the canopy is on the Jeep. And so one of the other things that I did and finished off is I've made a charging block here at the back of the Jeep. So it has a switch for a light that I've mounted inside here. It's just above my right hand here in the top corner. And that's another one of those Light Force Rock 9 work lights. Just a little LED light, super simple, but it really throws a lot of light. I've already looked in here in the dark, and it really, really is worth having to light up the whole back of the canopy here. And I put it on this side. I'm hoping it'll throw some light over on the kitchen area, but we'll see how that actually works out when the kitchen's here. Maybe I'll have to come up with some sort of system to have a light out here. We'll wait and see what the kitchen looks like and exactly how the awning sits. So we've got a switch for a light. We've also got a big switch over here. That's for the water pump that as yet I'm not certain where I'm going to mount it. And that's the wires you can see coming out of the charging block there for that pump. Also there's wires coming out for the fridge as well. I vaguely know where it'll be and I can finish that wiring later. Below that, I've got a big charging block for a laptop plug. And then below that, I've got a couple of waterproof USB outlets. So really nice to have USB back here. Seems like everything charges from USB these days. And I mounted this block right here where there was already a hole in the bed and where I was able to feed the wires through. And so they just run straight back to my charging block that's wired directly to the battery. So I think this is a really handy block to have here at the back of the Jeep, and I'm really happy with how it's finished up. And I was also able to finish the charging block that went in the cabinet And then that meant that I could bolt the cabinet in for the final time. So this charging block, it actually has 8 USB outlets, all from Lightforce, which given the amount of gear I need to charge, I think it's fantastic. And to have those inside my lockbox makes me really happy. I'll be able to have my batteries on the charge and I can just walk around here and swap out a battery for my camera or whatever. And of course, there's the little light in here as well, which with a switch right here near the front door, just turns the light on and off. So the cabinet's done, the charging block is done. I'm really happy with how all that's come together. And I do want to say too, this has taken way more time than I thought it would. And it's funny, you know, when you set out to build an overland vehicle, you really think about, you know, how long will it take to install the winch? What about the suspension? Where am I going to sleep? What about my kitchen? Like those are all big ticket items and it kind of makes sense that they'd take time. But I really do think that the devil is in the details. And actually the jobs that I'm spending the most time on, they're kind of the small jobs that you never even really see or you never really think about. And certainly if you were at Overland Expo or if you were at SEMA and you were looking at vehicles, these are the kind of little jobs that nobody even looks at, that nobody even gives any consideration to. But what I found when I was on the road in Africa, it's these little creature comforts, having good access to charging, having lights so you can see inside the vehicle. Those little creature comforts make such a big difference to your happiness. They're the ones that I'm actually spending my time and energy on right now. But hopefully that is an end to my charging setup. Hopefully that tides me over and everything will be enough now. So if you've enjoyed the video, do hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. There are always more videos coming, be it on the build, which definitely is getting close to the end, and then of course the adventure. We do have crazy COVID lockdown right now here in Victoria and in New South Wales in Australia. More than half of the Australian population right now is under lockdown. And that's definitely going to cause problems for my expedition. I don't exactly know what I'm going to do yet. Probably as soon as I can leave Victoria, I'm going to get right out of here, maybe go to South Australia, because then hopefully that'll get me access to Western Australia, Northern Territory, and kind of get me out to see more of the country rather than just being stuck here. So that's starting to loom large. I'll get out of here, I'll leave Dad's shed and actually get on the road. So until next time, thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, and maybe I'll bump into you on the road.